this is Sombra. Today I'll tell you a story about a man who just wanted to start a new life. But sometimes when we run away from ourselves, the road doesn't lead to light, but to shadow. My name is Artem. A few years ago I decided to move closer to the city center. My life had turned into an endless routine. A dull office, grey apartment blocks, neighbors shouting at night, and a ceiling cracked right above my bed. It felt like I was stuck, somewhere between sleep and existence. I started looking for a new job, something simple, just to change the air around me. Days passed, nothing came, until one night I saw an ad. Assistant wanted in an antique salon, flexible hours, accommodation provided, no photos, no names, only an address. Gogol Street, house number 17. I sent a message, not expecting anything. 5 minutes later, I got a reply. Come after sunset. The door will be open. That was odd, but curiosity won over reason. Around 8 in the evening, I left my old apartment for the last time. The air was humid, thick. That kind of night when even the streetlights seemed to breathe slower. The closer I got to the center, the quieter it became. Streets emptied. Old houses leaned toward each other, like whispering secrets. I turned onto Gogol Street. It was narrow, almost hidden. The houses looked forgotten, the kind you pass every day but never really see. At the very end stood number 17, a tall building with peeling walls and windows covered from the inside with dark curtains. I stopped. The street behind me was empty. No sound, no wind, just that house, waiting. I took a deep breath and pushed the door. It opened without a sound. Inside, the air smelled of wax, dust, and something sweet like dried flowers. Hello, I called out. Silence. Then footsteps, slow, measured from above. A voice followed. Come upstairs. A tall man stood on the landing. Pale face, eyes the color of parchment. He looked at me, as if he already knew I would come. You'll hear about the job. I nodded. Good, he said. It's simple work, helping me sort through old things. Some of them are delicate. Be careful. Then he paused. You can stay upstairs. Second floor, I asked. And the pay? He smiled faintly. You'll find it satisfying. And just as I turned to leave, he added quietly, oh, one more thing. Don't touch the mirror in the hall. I didn't think much of it back then. Just a strange man in a strange house. But later that night, I would understand. I woke up early that morning. The air inside the house was cold, even though summer heat still clung to the streets outside. I could hear the city, faintly, like through water, a tram bell, a dog barking somewhere far away. But inside, silence, heavy, watching. In daylight, the house looked even bigger. Long corridors stretched like ribs, covered in fading wallpaper, and portraits whose eyes followed me. The man from last night was already downstairs, sorting through a collection of old clocks. None of them showed the same time. You're awake, he said without looking at me. Good. Breakfast is in the kitchen. After that, we'll begin. I asked his name. He smiled faintly. It doesn't matter here, he said. Just call me the collector. The kitchen looked untouched, like no one had eaten there in years. plates were spotless. The air smelled faintly of wax and something metallic. "You'll be cataloguing the items in the hall," he said calmly. "Be careful with the mirror." Again, that mirror. It stood at the end of the corridor. A tall frame covered with carved vines and angel faces. Dust covered its surface, but my reflection still shone through, pale, uncertain. Only, when I raised my hand, the reflection didn't move right away. I laughed nervously. Maybe it was the light, or my tired eyes, but something deep inside whispered, "Don't touch it." The collector turned to me, his voice calm, too calm. "Some mirrors keep more than light," he said. "They remember." The rest of the day passed in silence. Old clocks, portraits, boxes of jewelry, everything covered in dust and time. Every tick, every creak felt alive. By evening, the collector disappeared upstairs. "I'll be gone for a while," he said. "Don't stay up too late." I tried to read, but the letters on the page seemed to move, like they were breathing. Then I heard it, a whisper, soft from the direction of the mirror. "He's not the first," the voice said, "and you won't be the last." I froze. My breath stopped. The glass was fogged from the inside. And then a fingerprint appeared, slowly, tracing my name. I didn't sleep that night, and by dawn, the house already felt different, like it was waiting. That night, I moved into the room upstairs. The collector said it had been empty for years. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew that wasn't true. There was a bed, an old wardrobe, and a small table near the window. The wallpaper had faded to a pale yellow, peeling near the corners, as if the house itself was shedding its skin. But what bothered me most was the smell. Not dust, not rot. Something familiar, like the scent of someone's perfume, long after they're gone. On the table there was a note, folded, yellowed, like it had waited for me. I opened it. Just one line, written in thin ink. "Don't look in the mirror after midnight." I looked around the room. No mirror. Only the reflection of the hall one, visible through the half-open door. For some reason, I left the note where it was. That night, I couldn't sleep. The walls groaned as if breathing. At one point, I heard footsteps, slow, measured, moving in the corridor outside. I thought it was the collector. But then, something changed. The steps stopped. Right by my door. I waited. A minute, two, nothing. I reached for the handle, but before I could touch it, the handle turned by itself. Slowly, deliberately. I froze. The door opened just a little. Cold air slid inside. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Only the faint sound of breathing. Then, from downstairs, a single chime from one of the clocks. Midnight. And in that moment I realized the mirror in the hall was glowing. Pale light shimmered across the walls. My reflection was standing there, but it was smiling. I wasn't. I took a step closer. The floorboards moaned under my feet. The reflection raised its hand. I didn't. It pressed its palm against the glass and whispered my name. Artem. I stumbled back, my heart pounding. The light flickered and vanished. I ran to the hall, but the mirror was dark, just dust. Only the faint outline of a hand remained on the inside of the glass. I didn't sleep again that night. In the morning, the collector asked if I'd rested well. I said nothing. He smiled. "Good," he said. "You're beginning to see the house." The morning was dim. The sunlight barely reached the windows, as if the city had forgotten this house existed. I went downstairs. The collector was nowhere to be found. No footsteps, no ticking clocks. Just still air and silence thick enough to breathe in. I called out, but no one answered. In the kitchen, a cup of tea sat on the table. Steam was still rising from it, as if he had just left the room a minute ago. But the house felt different. Empty dash. Not with loneliness, but with something waiting. I decided to keep busy to clean the main hall where the mirror stood. That's when I noticed a door I hadn't seen before. Low, narrow, with an iron handle. It led downward to the basement. The staircase was steep and cold. Each step echoed like a whisper. The deeper I went, the heavier the air became. It smelled of dust, damp stone, and iron. At the bottom stood several wooden boxes, dozens of them, each marked with a name written in old-fashioned handwriting. Ilya, Pyotr, Sergei, Anton. I opened the first one. Inside were a few letters, an old work ID, and a photograph. A young man standing in front of the same house. But the house looked different. The windows were darker, the walls older, as if decades, maybe centuries, had passed since the photo was taken. At the bottom of the box, I found a cassette. On the label, in shaky handwriting, it said, Gogol Street, 17, tape number 3. There was an old tape recorder on the shelf covered in dust. I pressed play. A hiss. Then, a voice. A man's voice, weak, tired. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. You can't stay here after midnight. He calls from the mirror. And if you answer, you'll stay. Forever. I froze. The sound stopped. I pressed stop, but the silence that followed was somehow louder than the voice itself. I lifted the flashlight again and noticed one more box, half open in the far corner. Inside it was a mirror, cracked, its frame carved with the same pattern as the one in the hall. Those same twisting vines, those angel faces. cold spread through my chest. I could feel it, as if the house was breathing right beside me. Then, footsteps. Above. Slow, heavy, moving across the floor. I turned off the flashlight and stayed still. Whoever it was. They were walking directly above me. Then silence. And after a long moment, a voice, faint, muffled, coming through the walls. You weren't supposed to go down there. I spun around. No one. But in the cracked mirror at the back of the room, I saw a reflection. My reflection. But wrong. Older. Colder. With a face that wasn't quite mine. I stepped back, hit a box, and it fell, spilling open. Dozens of work IDs scattered across the floor, each one with a different name, but all from the same place. Antique Salon, Gogol Street 17. I stood there in the dark, surrounded by the lives of others, and finally understood. I wasn't the first one here, and I probably wouldn't be the last. I stopped keeping track of time. Days and nights melted together like candle wax, dripping slowly, losing shape. Sometimes I woke up in daylight. Sometimes the world outside the window was dark, but the clocks in the house all said noon. The collector was still gone, or maybe he'd never left. I started hearing his voice in the walls, like an echo moving between the rooms. At first, I thought it was in my head, but one night, when I walked past the mirror in the hall, it spoke back. "You're late." I froze. The reflection didn't move with me. It stood still, staring straight ahead. I whispered, "Late for what?" No answer. Just the faint hum of the house. A sound too deep to be real, like the vibration of something ancient, half alive, half dreaming. I started noticing changes. Small at first. A chair that wasn't there yesterday. A picture frame that showed a face I didn't remember. Books on the shelves rearranged. Titles shifting, letters bleeding into one another like wet ink. I tried to write things down. Notes, dates, to remind myself what was real. But every morning my handwriting was different. Not just messy, different. Once, it wasn't even mine. That evening, I walked past the mirror again. There was light coming from inside it, like a room beyond the glass. And in that room, I saw myself. Older, tired, sitting at the same desk I was standing beside now. He looked up at me and smiled. "You still think you're the first?" I stepped closer. The reflection copied me this time, perfectly except for the eyes. They were alive, aware. Behind him, in the glow of that impossible light, I could see movement. Shadows twisting, forming shapes of people turning toward me. Dozens of them. All the faces I'd seen in the photographs from the basement. They were standing behind my reflection, watching. The older me turned his head slightly, as if listening to them. Then he whispered, "They remember." The glass rippled. For a moment I saw something impossible. The hall around me changing, the wallpaper fresh, the air warm, the same room, but alive like decades ago. Then, it was gone. I stumbled back, nearly falling over a chair. The house creaked loudly, like something deep within its bones was shifting. A door slammed upstairs, then another, and another. The sound moved, circling me. I grabbed my coat and ran toward the main door. But it was gone. Not locked. Gone. Just wall. Smooth. Cold. The floor beneath me trembled. The chandelier above began to sway, its crystals clicking softly together. Like teeth. From every mirror in the hallway, light began to pulse, each one flickering like a heartbeat. Faster. Faster. I covered my ears, but the sound wasn't in my ears. It was inside my skull. "He's not gone," a voice whispered. "He never leaves. The house keeps him until it finds another." I turned dash, and there in the largest mirror stood the collector, still, smiling faintly. Only now his face was mine. He raised his hand slowly and pointed toward me. "It's your turn." The mirrors around me cracked. Not shattered, but splintered like ice breaking on a frozen lake. And through those fractures, I saw scenes. Flashes of things that hadn't happened yet. Me, sitting at the desk, cataloging new names, welcoming someone else through the door. The same door I'd once entered, when I thought I was starting a new life. I fell to my knees, covering my eyes. But even in the darkness, I could still see the house. Breathing, waiting. And somewhere deep inside me, a quiet voice whispered, "You can leave, but you'll always find your way back." When I opened my eyes, everything was calm again. The lights steady, the floor still, the house silent. The mirror was just a mirror, no cracks, no glow, only my reflection, exhausted, pale, but alive for now. I don't know how much time has passed. An hour, a day, a week. Everything melted into one long breath. But for the first time in a long while, I felt peace. Not outside, inside. The kind you only find after walking through your own darkness. When I woke up, the house was different. The air smelled of dust and sunlight, not of dampness and time. The mirrors were whole, no cracks, no reflections that weren't mine. I walked to the big mirror in the hall. It stood quietly by the wall, catching the morning light. And for the first time, I saw only myself. No double, no ghost behind the glass. my reflection looked tired but calm. There was no fear left in the eyes, only a strange softness like forgiveness. I touched the glass. It was warm, alive. And in that warmth, I felt something letting go. "Is it over?" I whispered. Silence answered, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was full, like the breath of something sleeping peacefully. I walked through the rooms. The wooden floors creaked softly under my steps. The house didn't scare me anymore. It just existed. On the table there was a cup of coffee, still warm, steam rising lazily into the light. I smiled. Maybe the house wasn't haunting me anymore. Maybe it was saying goodbye. I opened the window. The city outside was awake. Cars, voices, the smell of rain. For the first time in years, that sound didn't make me feel small. It made me feel alive. Sometimes I still think of him. The collector, who he was, what he became. Now I understand. He wasn't a monster. He was memory. A keeper of everything I tried to forget. Every pain, every regret, every shadow I'd left behind. Later I heard they were going to demolish the house, to build something new, a modern building, glass and steel. I didn't feel sad. The house had done its job. It had brought me back to myself. I visited it one last time, at sunset. The light fell through broken windows like golden dust. I walked through each room, and every corner felt both familiar and new. On the old desk, there was a single word carved into the wood. Live. I laughed quietly. It was him, or me. No difference anymore. I closed the door gently behind me. No wind, no echo, just silence, soft and kind. Now I live closer to the center. I hear traffic, laughter, life. Sometimes I still wake up at night and listen to the quiet, but it doesn't scare me anymore. There's a small mirror on my shelf. No frame, no design, just glass. Sometimes I think I see someone smile back at me, but I don't look away, because now I know he's not my enemy. He's the part of me that remembers, the part that survived. Every morning, I write one line in my notebook. Today's is simple. Don't be afraid to look inside. That's where freedom begins. Once, I was searching for a way out. Now I know. I was always looking for a way home. Don't forget to subscribe. The next story might be real. and it could happen to you.